I just think the whole thing about this competition, seeing life as a competition, I'm still learning it.
Okay.
To let go of whatever other people are doing and just focus on my journey is hard. I do try to do it, and I try to practice it, and I meditate, and that's some of the stuff I meditate on. But trying to just really trust that I'm walking my walk, and it doesn't matter how old I am, what sex I am, what color I am, what the barriers may be out there to my success and whatever success means.
Right.
That this is my journey, and so I can't take from everybody else, and there's no reason to be jealous of anybody else who might have moved quicker, because that's their story. That's not my story.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 36 of the Amani Experience Podcast. For this show, we have Samantha Lavin, who is a director, screenwriter, and writer. She's got a long, extensive list of very popular shows and movies she's worked on. She has an impressive resume, and she was just as impressive in person. Some of my favorite things about this show and my conversation with Samantha, was just her perspective on competition. It was refreshing, and she talked about how it's not easy, but it's necessary, so I really respect that. She also had some good thoughts on advising us to continue creating. One of my favorite quotes she said was, "Don't let your head stop your heart." So I really like that. And then she also mentions having a supportive tribe around you several times throughout the interview. And I think that's important, and I'm glad she spoke about that. It's time to get to another review. We'll read our next review. It comes from Sawdust Kristen. Sawdust Kristen says, "I love this podcast. Amani is a great host and experienced interviewer for sure. He allows his guests to be the real star of the show instead of taking over obnoxiously, as many other podcasters do. He is intently listening. His guests are inspiring, and I love to hear their stories and how hard work helped them find their passion." Thank you very much for that review, Sawdust Kristen. Please feel free to leave a review if you like. You can read it on one of the shows. Thank you very much for listening. It's time to get to the show. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to read our guest's bio for today, and then we'll get right to the show. Our guest today is a DGA director, assistant director, and writer who has worked on an array of film and television projects, including The Mayor, Criminal Minds, CSI New York, Scrubs, and Law & Order SVU. As an assistant director, her film In Memory of Me screened at over 40 festivals worldwide, winning awards including Best Performance, Best Female Director, Best Short, and Panavision's new filmmaker grant. Our guest today created a hybrid scripted reality show called Out of the Frying Pan, which was optioned by NBC Comcast, who then hired her to direct the presentation pilot. Our guest won a national competition for a PSA she wrote and directed on marriage equality during the height of the Proposition 8 battle. I would like to welcome Samantha Lavin to the Amani Experience Podcast. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
You are welcome. We are honored to have you. So we love to do a geographical check-in. So tell us where we are right now.
We are right now at the Secret Rose Theater. It sounds very secret. In North Hollywood. That's where we are having all of our rehearsals.
Yes. And you're rehearsing for what?
We're rehearsing for a play called Key Change.
Got it.
Which is a West Coast premiere in the United States of this play.
Okay, good. And where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up on Long Island.
Strong Island, as we like to say.
Strong Island.
Nice. And you went to school at Purchase College, correct?
I did.
All right. And your major was?
Drama studies.
Okay. Cool. And then from there, you stayed in New York and kind of talk to us about what you did after you graduated, and then how did you find your way out to Los Angeles?
Well, that's a long one, but I'll keep it short. I graduated. I was pursuing writing film, writing TV scripts, but I studied theater more. So I didn't have any contacts. I didn't really know how to get into that world. I started an improv comedy group in Westchester County, New York. And I then took a video production class randomly while I was teaching high school in the South Bronx at a Catholic school. That was what I was doing for money at that time.
Nice.
And I took this video production class and met a guy who knew a girl who was something called the Directors Guild of America trainee. And they suggested that I try to take this test to get into this program and blah, blah, blah. And they said it's absolutely not a road to being a director, but I didn't care. And I got in, and I knew nothing, but that was my training ground for all things television and film, and it absolutely has led to directing.
Absolutely. Nice. And so keep going. Like, how did you get from kind of the video directing class out here to LA? Because that's a...
Yeah, I went through the program, so that has, I was on about 15 different film and television sets, and I directed a short film called Time Collapse, and that went through the festival circuit. And then I just felt like it was time to make some new contacts and to change my environment and just explore LA. I just felt like it had more opportunity, to grow there. So I did. I just kind of decided to do it.
Okay.
Shake my roots loose a little bit and get out of where I was. I gave up teaching, which was hard because I felt like I never wanted to be a teacher forever. But I did love inspiring kids,
right,
and helping them and watching them grow. But I feel like that's very akin to directing. So I feel like that's also a really strong part of my history that way.
Okay. So you were what subject did you teach in school?
Well, when I first started, I taught science, which I know zero about, by the way, and history. And then when I went into the high school, they were a little smarter, so I had to teach what I knew, which was English.
Okay.
So I did better.
Nice. English, like, was it senior year, junior?
Seniors.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, like we read Frankenstein.
Great,
all
yeah.
the classics.
Nice. What other books did you have your students read? Because that's like...
Besides Frankenstein, Catcher in the Rye.
Good. Yes.
Now, Mice and Men was the kids, the juniors. It's spilling out of my brain right now.
Well, as you remember them, because we'll talk about books a little later, but as you remember them, like senior year, I remember a lot of the books that I read were pretty impactful. So that's nice. So you got out here to LA, kind of found your roots. What was it? What was maybe your first kind of break or your first kind of really notable achievement here in LA?
In LA, I think you have to make your own here. I mean, there's all those stories about getting a break, but I decided to make a film. I decided that I was going to make a film on film, and I put together In Memory of Me.
Yes.
And a crew and credit card, and went to Idlewild, California, on location. Because when I dream big. So we went out, took a whole crew, put them up, and shot the movie, and that was sort of the beginning of me really truly entering that world of directing. So
I had a chance to watch the movie, so I saw it, really enjoyed it as well. I'm curious, what was your inspiration for writing it and directing it?
It wasn't about me, but it was a part of me. It was the whole idea about memory and different people's versions of it. The idea of like conversations that you wish you had and how maybe they would have changed your life if you just had one simple conversation or been honest in one moment. What would it have done? How would it have changed you? Yeah. And so it was an exploration of that, and it felt like high school was the proper time for that to fit into there.
True. Nice.
Yeah.
Now that you explain that, it makes even more sense. So I'm definitely going to link that film to the show notes because I enjoyed it. And you won several awards for the show as well, correct?
Yeah.
And now is it still perhaps being made into a film, or what's kind of where's
In Memory of Me?
Yeah.
In Memory of Me, I did shop around for a while and we got some good traction. But it's very hard to make female-driven dramas. It was. I'm hoping it won't always be that way and that it's getting better. So I kind of put it on a shelf for a while.
Okay.
And I wrote another film.
Okay. Yes, and that film is
7 on 10.
So before we get to 7 on 10, which I also saw the 3-minute preview of that as well, why do you feel it's harder, even now, to make more female-driven kind of main character films?
Because I still think the people that are in power are buying into an old idea that the market is teenage boys and young men, and that's who's going to spend money on popcorn and go to movies. But I think it's just a mindset. It's not even about numbers. I really think it's a mindset, and we just need more women to come through the ranks and pull each other up, and allow each other the opportunities to grow.
Right.
So.
Okay, good answer. If we were going to go back and summarize Sam, we'll call you Sam because that's what everyone calls you, in 30 seconds, how would you summarize yourself in 30 seconds?
Oh my God, that was my Long Island accent for you.
You can keep it in the whole interview. We love the accent.
Some sort of creative giver and teacher.
Okay, good. And then continuing, and we talk about 7 on 10. What is the inspiration behind that film?
That film I wrote with someone else who basically I was giving them a ride to a doctor's appointment, and she had served time in prison. And she said, I have a story, I have a movie. And a lot of people say that to me, but she seemed to really have one. And she didn't really have a story, but she had an idea. And it was about women in prison playing basketball and what that does for them, what that did for them in prison. And we started the script, we wrote it together, and it became more about a story about a woman who goes to prison because she's an alcoholic,
right,
and winds up recovering and finding recovery in prison and finding herself at the end of the day in prison.
Okay.
So.
Nice. And you pretty much had finished the first cut in like 2013, 2014?
No, I finished the script. Yeah, the script probably I've finished about 10 times, but I really put it away probably about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and it's done. And then we created this Indiegogo campaign to raise initial funds to make the movie because, you can't wait.
Right.
You got to just do it. You got to just keep moving. So I figured maybe we could raise like $15,000 to get us, a lawyer and a casting director and then start doing that. And in the back of my mind, I hoped that maybe we'd find financing. And the miracle was that we did raise the money, and then we did find financing for 7 on 10, full financing. So I can't reveal my source.
Right. We don't ask you that.
But it's in a very good place.
Good. And should we expect it on the screens kind of when?
I would say definitely 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So we're maybe less than a year out. Or whatever. Good. So we'll make sure to link that clip, the kind of trailer clip, into the show notes as well. Now, I guess the best question is that in today's environment, it's very, very hard for creative professionals such as yourself, myself, to succeed. What do you think is important for creative people like you, like me, to succeed in this business environment now?
Support, really good network of people, and I don't think it has to be a big one, just a couple people that believe in you and that you can really depend on, that'll pick you up when you feel like you can't go anymore. I also think it's very important to try to find some financial stability, which I think is underrated because, this takes a lot longer than a lot of people think. And, we all have to eat. And I think I create better when I'm fed and not stressing about my bills. And so I think it's also important to find a way to keep yourself afloat while you're pursuing, because it makes it you can stay in the game longer.
Agreed.
So that might be a weird suggestion, but
I love the suggestion. What have you done to kind of keep yourself financially secure?
Well, I was fortunate enough to get into the Directors Guild program, the training program. However, it is still kind of a day job to me. I mean, it really is. I was so dumb, I didn't even know that it was a union. Like, I didn't know I was going to get benefits, a pension. I had no idea. I just wanted to get closer to film and television. So I got into that. I think I would tell you that I hated it for about 5 years. I resented it because I wasn't doing what I thought I loved, but I was right next to it. And then, I don't know, it shifted, and I started to realize how grateful I am and how lucky I am to have a job like that and be in it. And then I started to actually like the job. It's amazing how that happens.
Yes.
So that's what I've been doing to keep myself afloat. I never take a long job. I always leave room for my creative work in between. So I try to keep my bills low.
Okay. Good. Because you've worked in a lot of shows like Scrubs, CSI, like many, many shows. And so that's kind of what you do so that when it's time for your creativity to come out, you're not stressed about how you're going to pay the mortgage, pay the bills. Exactly. I read an author. I forget how to pronounce his name, but he's the author of The School of Good and Evil. And he says that even today, and he's got a major book deal and a movie deal, he still goes and works at being a tutor for kids, and that's how he kind of keeps it full, because he says that allows his creative elves to stay present. So he said exactly what you said, so that's a great suggestion, and thank you for sharing that. Now, what do you do to find people to support you? Because, we're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with, is what they say. So how have you been able to accumulate a really strong tribe?
I think doing what you love is part of it, and then also being of service to something or someone that has always led me to really good people. And usually not people in the industry that I'm in necessarily, but very strong, loving, supportive people. I've been connected to this place called Women for Sobriety Center,
Okay.
and I'm on the board of directors. And this woman, Shirley, runs it, and she's just an unbelievable powerhouse of a human being, just her heart. And I met her because I wanted to give something. I wanted to do something that wasn't, necessarily related to just my own agenda. And that's how I've met some of the best people is giving,
Right.
and
Yeah.
helping other people, giving to other people.
Right. And how did you find the Center for Sobriety? Because that's pretty. It's not like they're not out there advertising for help or whatever. So how'd you find them?
Right. I found them through someone who had been through the program.
Okay.
And and I met Shirley, and she just blew me away. She's just kind and generous, and not in it for the money at all, helping women who are coming out of prison, helping women with their children to reunite and find just their first place to live, coming out of homelessness.
Right.
And the film, 7 on 10, but a little bit back to that, is all about the female incarceration issue and recidivism, and making sure that those women are, supported when they come out, because a lot of them don't even have anywhere to go. So as we're making the film, I really want to help the people that the film is about.
Good. All right. Nice. Now, if we go back to maybe this might have been your first assignment with, the Directors Guild Association, To Love, Honor, and Deceive back in 1996.
Oh my God! Did you really just go there?
So it's just if we go there and then we fast forward to now, when do you feel was the turning point of your career? When did you say, you know what, this is legit? I'm, an official director, and this is like onward and upward. When do you feel was your turning point?
It's a really good question. I don't think it was any one particular thing that I directed. I felt accomplished when I'd written a couple of screenplays and when I'd actually produced some work, but it was also an emotional, spiritual sort of a thing, just feeling it and seeing myself that way and doing it.
Right.
So it really is hard to say when.
Okay, that's fair enough, but I had to take it back just to jog your memory.
Well,
so.
Love, Honor, Deceive, that is, that was with Thomas Gibson and Vanessa Marcel from General Hospital.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So.
Brenda, she's Brenda on
Yeah,
Brenda.
see, you with me?
Yes.
Exactly, I love Brenda. So she was like the first star I ever met.
Okay.
And I was a huge I'm from Long Island. I had to watch soap
Yes.
operas. So I was a huge General Hospital fan, and she was wonderful.
Yeah. What was the name of the city General Hospital was based out of? I'm trying to remember the name of the city.
Charles.
Yes, Fort Charles. Because I grew up at All My Children fan. So it's ABC. So you'd stay late, get home from school, General Hospital was on.
Absolutely.
So you had to catch up with All My Children. This was back in the day when you had to read AOL, the update, But then when I was in college, I made sure that my classes were not between 1 and 2 so I could come home and watch All My Children. So
There you go.
I got you with the soap operas.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, why do you love what you do?
I love telling stories, and I love working with actors. I really appreciate artists who put themselves on the line and put it all out there. That's exciting to me. I love creating not just by myself. I love working in collaboration with people, and even as an assistant director, I get to go to almost a different place to work every day. I go to all kinds of weird places in LA that I would never see in a million years.
Right.
And do all kinds of different things. So that's fun, and work with different crews.
Good. And since you're a writer, I know many people who are writers that just have trouble writing. What do you do to kind of get over that hump to write your first page? How do you keep it going? Because that's half the battle.
Usually when I get severe writer's block, I have to get out of the house.
Okay.
I have to take a shower. I have to put real clothes on, get out of my pajamas. And because it's just like I can get glued and stuck in such an obsessive groove of like, this has to be great, that sometimes I just need to change my physical position and take a walk. But I don't think there's a magic bullet. I also have sat there in massive frustration for
Right.
like weeks, and then it just turned back on. I sometimes I just feel like I have to let it go and just let it come back, let it come to me a little bit, but not too long, because then I'm not writing anything.
Yeah, we got to write.
Yeah.
Who are some writers that inspire you?
I love Aaron Sorkin.
Good, yeah. Smart, yes.
Yeah, I think his writing is is amazing. I love. I just actually rewatched the entire West Wing.
Many people have recommended that.
Yeah. So I love him.
Okay, Aaron Sorkin, good name. We'll link him as well. What is something that scares you?
Something that scares me. I'm not going to say DT. I'm just not going to go there.
We'll say in addition to DT, what else scares you?
I guess the lack of connection.
Okay. And any kind of explanation or kind of you want to explain what do you mean when you say lack of connection with like people you're working with or your audience? What do you?
I just don't feel like I'm participating in the world if I'm not connecting to people. And when I don't participate in the world, I just feel like I don't know what my purpose is anymore. And so that scares me. I would like to. I'm not even an extrovert, but I like to stay connected and know that I have people.
Right.
You know.
Okay. The movie space, directing space is very, very crowded. What do you do to kind of rise above the competition and distinguish yourself as a director, as a screenwriter, as a writer?
I am very connected to my service is very connected to my writing and directing. Things that I'm passionate about, things that I care about. And once I connected those two things, and I guess that's that moment that you're looking for, things just started to flow. So when 7 on 10 really became about those women, and that passion just really infected other people and got them on board. And I feel like that was the thing that made me stand out on Indiegogo, was that I talked probably more about the Women for Sobriety Center than I did about the actual movie, because that's where these stories come from. Those are the people. And so once I connected my sense of service and giving to my career, and it wasn't all about me,
right,
and my agenda and my getting ahead, when I stopped framing it like that and just keep telling stories that are important, then I was able to really kind of get in the game.
Nice.
And accelerate, for sure.
Good. So you found your calling and your mission, and then it's like onward and upward.
Hopefully.
No, yes, it is. I have confidence in you. No worries. This is a question we love to ask. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Favorite failure? Yeah. Okay. So my film Time Collapse was a half an hour long, and it was a short film. And everyone told me not to make it a half an hour long. And I don't say that I should listen to everybody all the time, but I certainly learned, because it got into very few festivals, and I thought it was, okay at least, that sometimes I have to really take outside criticism, especially when it's my first film. Right. So that might be a little advice that I can give. Yeah.
Okay.
One.
And so then, learning from that experience, how did you apply those learnings to your future projects?
I learned how to take criticism and filter it. I learned how to take constructive criticism, and if I'm hearing the same thing from 3-4 people, then I usually listen.
Okay.
If it's one strange, outlier that maybe has an agenda, I try to dismiss it and not make it personal.
Right.
And just absorb what I need to absorb.
Okay. And speaking of criticism and critics, now that you're award-winning filmmaker and writer, there are more critics come out of the woodworks. How do you handle your critics and naysayers, the haters, as we say?
Yeah. And the haters come in many forms and guises as well.
Oh, yes, explain what that means too.
Yeah, I mean, because they can act like your friend. I mean, there's people who just will give bad advice because they are feeling like they're failing and they want people to go down with them. Unfortunately, that's just true.
Right.
I find, especially in this city of LA, unfortunately, with so many people, trying to do the same thing, or at least they think they're trying to do the same thing. So how do I deal with it? I just stay focused on the work, stay focused on the storytelling, and know that if it's coming from a genuine place, then it's a genuine story, and it's important no matter what anybody thinks. And if it sucks, then I've got to move on.
True that. So definitely talk to us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
I guess, well, okay. So when I was making 7 on 10, for whatever reason, I think there were a couple of family things that happened, and my mother got sick, and I went into a depression and pulled away from everybody in my life and just kind of went way inward. But I didn't know it. I mean, with depression, it's a scary thing because I just thought the world was getting really screwed up and everybody should just change except for me, and that I'm going to go hide until the world fixes itself. But it got very dark, and I was very down for, I would say that lasted almost a year. And what was interesting about that is that the film, 7 on 10, got pushed because of financing, temporarily pushed at the same time. And I felt like I was being taken care of. Because if I had made that film in that state of mind, it wouldn't have been the same film.
Right.
I'm in a completely different place now. So that's what came out of that. And I believe in that a lot. I mean, I can't force timing.
Nope.
So I just have to flow with it.
Yeah, you can't force it. What did you do to kind of get yourself out of the state of depression and kind of reemerge, kind of through the dark tunnel into the light again, so to speak?
I had to be honest with certain friends of mine. Some of them were actually really angry at me because I hadn't reached out to them. I hadn't told them what was really going on. So I reached out. Well, they were good enough to actually tell me that they were upset with me, which I think is actually a kindness that they did, and they were honest. And I realized I was actually hurting people. And that got me back on track, back out in the world, doing the things that I needed to do to take care of myself.
Okay, nice. Now, when we think back to lessons that you've learned in life, what lesson do you feel took you the longest to learn in life?
Oh, God. I just think the whole thing about this competition, seeing life as a competition, I'm still learning it.
Okay.
To let go of whatever other people are doing and just focus on my journey is hard. I do try to do it, and I try to practice it, and I meditate, and that's some of the stuff I meditate on, but trying to just really trust that I'm walking my walk, and it doesn't matter how old I am, what sex I am, what color I am, what the barriers may be out there to my success, and whatever success means.
Right.
That this is my journey, and so I can't take from everybody else, and there's no reason to be jealous of anybody else who might have moved quicker, because that's their story. That's not my story.
Yes. I relate 100%. And so if you were giving me advice, because I struggle with that myself, what are some little things here and there you can do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to really kind of avoid falling into the comparison trap? Because that is a massive rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you have for people like me who struggle with that?
That's work. It really is. And for me, it's meditation really helps, and just getting centered and quiet, taking quiet time for myself, and getting in touch with really who I am. Because once I'm there, then I know that all that other stuff isn't important, and believing that I'm here for a reason, and just staying on that and reminding myself of that, and also the support, the people around me that love me, that'll say it's going to happen, it's happening, it's actually happening already, and you don't see it, and somebody else, and also realizing that where I am right now is fine. It's awesome, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm always going to strive, but I realized I am successful. I don't have to go be successful. I'm doing what I love, and a lot of people are still struggling at a different point in their lives, and that struggle is part of it. It's all part of it. It all got me here.
Yeah, definitely. Good advice. Thank you. Maybe I'll call you up in a couple months for more advice, too.
Absolutely.
Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
Wow. God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but probably my dad, because I didn't really even like my dad when we were growing up. I adore him now, but I guess so I can say that. But my father is a real estate broker.
Okay.
He always made such a point of saying to me, do not work for anyone else. Never put your future in somebody else's hands. And for some reason, those words always stayed in my head. And I really haven't. I mean, even teaching, it's a movable career. This career certainly is. It's all freelance. And he taught me not to be afraid to take risks, even though I saw him be afraid of some of them, but I tried to learn from that. And I think that's impacted me tremendously. He started his own business. He completely failed. He had a handicapped daughter born when he first started his business. He had zero money, and somehow he managed to get medical insurance, and somehow he managed to pay for her hospitalizations, and he just managed. And it was all worth it to him to not have to, be beholden to anybody else.
Right. Great. What do you think, in terms of your career life, what's been maybe some of the biggest one or two risks you've taken following in your father's footsteps?
Well, moving to LA was a big risk.
Yes, I agree.
From New York.
Yes.
I love New York. It's fantastic.
Right.
So yeah, moving to LA, where I didn't initially like any of the people. I did not like LA for probably the first 3 or 4 years. I was insistent that I was going back. When I turned down big jobs a lot. I'm mostly what they call a key second assistant director, and normally by now I would mostly be a first assistant director, and I'm not, because I'm committed to this career, to my creative career. It's more important. So if I stay on a show a whole season, I'll get promoted, but
Right.
if I keep bouncing around, it's much harder. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. That's a gamble I'm willing to take. It's just to stay in the game, make enough money, but not make it about money.
Good. I like that. So when you were creating and filming In Memory of Me, you started Fair Fight Films, and that company has now flourished and now includes other films. What was your motivation for starting? I know the motivation was probably to create In Memory of Me, but kind of how has that flourished and grown based on your initial goals?
How has it flourished and grown? I think just being that container for projects that are really about strong women, strong people, underdogs, and also the whole theme of it is really supporting other artists. I think that's just something that, as an artist, I'm responsible to do, is to give back. And Fair Fight is all about, originally it was about women and women in
Right.
the industry, and it still is, but I feel like there's a lot of other fair fights that we have to have.
I would agree, too. Definitely. Now, if we go back to 21-year-old Sam, and we're going to sit down in a coffee shop with Sam and talk to her, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
Create.
Ooh, I love it. Tell us why you would give yourself that advice.
Because just don't let your head stop your heart, because that is the enemy. My thinking was the enemy. I just wish that I had created more earlier and not thought ahead about, well, is this going to be okay, and is people going to like this, and just create and get better, get more skilled, have fun.
Yeah. That's powerful there. What would you advise people, like younger people who are following in your footsteps, to kind of follow that sooner than later? Because that's tough. People struggle. They might not ever create because they're afraid, fear. So what kind of advice would you have for people that want to follow in your footsteps?
I'd say identify the fear, because it's not always the same fear. Sometimes it's a fear of not making enough money, and sometimes it's a fear of failure. So I think first I had to figure out what I was afraid of. And I was all about getting out of my house and being a huge star and all that stuff. And I think that part of that is just maturity. But at a certain point, I had to let that go and just push forward and create. And because all we have is ourselves. That's it. All that outside noise is nothing. If any of this stuff that I'm talking about, Memory of Me, 7 on 10, bringing my directing skills to a play, it's all coming from as creative as I can be. I'm only as good as I can access that. So practicing accessing that is just so important.
Good. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence would be, I help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
Yeah, and how much time did you have to come up with that?
I had lots of time.
That was off the cuff.
But you've already had some great kind of snippets that you could use, between don't let your head stop your heart and things like that as well. So,
yeah, I would say, that. I have a tattoo that says "Create fearlessly."
okay, we like that.
I think that would kind of sum it up.
I love
Create
it.
fearlessly.
Now, who did I hear say that? Did it? Was it Elizabeth Gilbert or someone prominent has said something similar? So that's a good one there. Well done.
Thank you.
What's one new habit you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
Meditation.
Okay. And for people who want to get into meditation, what's a good way to kind of get started?
I just use the cheap apps or the free apps right
Yeah.
now. They're great just to get into it. Right now I'm using Headspace.
That's a great app. Okay, cool. Now, as we talked about before, we're voracious readers here in the Money Experience podcast. If there was 1, 2, or 3 books that you feel people should stop what they're doing right away and begin to read them, what books would you recommend?
I would say there was a book that was just written by Donna Tartt, Goldfinch, which is beautiful, but there's a better book by Donna Tartt that people don't know as much about called The Secret History, and that is a transformational book.
Nice.
So that's my book
I
recommendation.
love it. I'm going to check that one out right away. So great.
Excellent.
So no one's ever mentioned. I've heard Goldfinch, but not the other one. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. And then Pillars of the Earth, Ken Follett.
Okay.
You have to read that too.
Good. On the list. So as you look back on your career, your life, we always love to talk about defining moments. If you were to pick 1 or 2 defining moments from your career, from your life so far, which moments come to mind?
I think moving forward, putting down In Memory of Me, because putting down that script, I was willing to let something new happen. I was willing, because what happens is, you can get into a groove where you fight and fight and fight and fight and fight, right, for the same creative thing. And this is going to succeed, and I'm going to make it happen. And I stopped trying to make it happen and just let things happen. And so I had to pivot.
All right, good. Thanks for sharing. Tell people how they can kind of follow you online if they're looking to kind of follow you or engage with you. Where are you online?
I'm a bad Twitterer, but I think there's Samantha Lavin at Twitter, and Facebook. I mean, I am on those 2 things.
Okay,
but
Instagram?
I don't have a little, but I'm not that much into it.
Cool. So
Social media person's gonna kill me.
we'll add some links, so don't worry about that. Great. So definitely appreciate you being on the show. I really respect the work you're doing. Excited to see the finished products as well, and just look forward to staying in touch. And we're really appreciative of you being on the show. So what I love to let my guests do is kind of leave the show with any last-minute wisdom or advice. And while you do that, I'll take a quick little Instagram story video of us talking. But yeah, just really appreciate you being on the show. You've given some great advice and wisdom. So
Good.
What else do you want to share with us as we kind of take it home?
I just say, go out there and live and enjoy life while you're doing whatever it is you're doing. We didn't talk much about Key Change, the actual play.
Tell us about Key Change. So go ahead.
But that is a play that I found online because I was waiting. This is another pivot for 7 on 10 for some of the financing, some of the casting. And I wanted to do a play about women in prison because it was related. And I found this play that had been done in England, Scotland, and then in New York City, and who won the New York Times Critic Award. And I had never even heard of it.
Okay.
And I read it, and it's a completely unique structure. It's 5 strong women in a play, and they are on stage 100% of the time together. So directing this is quite an experience. But it's a beautiful play about women supporting each other, learning what empathy and compassion is, understanding that people weren't born in a cell and that life came before that and how they got there. So I'm super excited about the premiere. It's April 13th.
Okay, where?
At the Secret Rose Theater.
Yes, and we'll include the links to buy tickets. And it's playing through the 25th, I believe, of April.
It's 3 weekends,
3 weekends.
right now,
Nice.
so I think, yeah.
Okay, we'll link it up. So great. Well, we look forward to seeing the play. Keychain, correct?
Key Change.
Key Change. Good. We'll link all that up. Thank you very much for being on the show, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.